I'm Old Sneelock. Welcome to Old Sneelock's Kitchen. Kitchen? Yes, kitchen. Today I'm baking a cake. No, it's not my birthday. I'm making it, so I'm going to let you watch along while I make a cake for her today. First thing I need is the recipe. The recipe being handwritten out on this piece of paper. This is the one my wife gave to me, and this is how I make them. I'll put a link to my blog where I have this cake recipe. You put the dry ingredients in a bowl, and I put the wet ingredients in a measuring cup because I need to use the measuring cup anyways, and that way I get everything in 2 easy operations. This can be made in a 9x12 cake pan or a bundt pan. Lydia likes the bundt pan better. It's just a little fancier. It adds something to the cake. First thing the recipe calls for is 1 cup of vanilla protein powder. Seems kind of weird to me to have soy go into anything, but then this wasn't my cake recipe, it's just the one I used. And Lydia likes it, so that's good enough for me. The tub came with 2 measuring cups in it. Okay, recipe calls for 1 cup vanilla protein powder. Got that in the bowl. Then 1 cup oat bran. One of the things I do as I'm baking, when I have put an ingredient in the cake, I move that ingredient off to the right hand side. That way I know I put it in and it's not a guessing game of, oh, did I put it in this time or did I not? Now, if this was one of those fancy cooking shows, I would have already had the bag cut, and my assistant would have the measuring cup filled, and all I would do is, with a flourish, dump the oat bran into the bowl. But this is Old Sneelock's workshop. We do things the old-fashioned way. Okay, I've got the soy in, I've got the oat bran in. Next thing to go is 1/4 cup of non-fat dry milk. One-quarter cup. Okay, we have the oat bran, we have the non-fat dry milk, and we have the soy powder in there. And we use 2 packets of Crystal Light Lemon. One. 2. I use 4 packets of Natural Taste sweetener. Then 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Teaspoon, not tablespoon. Make sure you don't mess that up. 1 teaspoon of baking soda. One teaspoon of baking powder. That's all the dry ingredients. This is one last checkpoint here. The dry ingredients, from past experience, can sit in the bowl and not cause any problem while you go to the store and get the thing you forgot. Once you start mixing the liquid ingredients, you've pretty much got the clock going. First thing we do is put the unsweetened applesauce in. Now you can try and put it into the measuring cup and just hit the number, but it's easier to use a dry measuring cup. Dump it from the dry measuring cup into the This way, if you put a little too much into the cup, which is possible, not likely, but it's possible, you always have the option of saying, oh, I don't want to dump that in. How do I know these things? Because I've made mistakes in the past. And why should you suffer through your own mistakes when you can profit from mine? There's 1. And there's 2. Applesauce off to the side. I'm going to close this up just so that I don't have it. Now we put 8 eggs in there. I like to put the shells on a paper towel. No point having to clean up 2 messes. 1, 2. I can count the shells too. 3. 4, 5, 6, 7. About now, I want to preset the oven. This is the way my oven works. Yours is going to be different. Set it for 350. Put it on bake. And that's going to be heating up while we're doing the final mixing. That's egg number 7. And that's number 8. Another thing that I've learned, always check and make sure that you have the proper number of eggs before you start. I usually pile all this stuff on the counter in the package. That way I know what I've got and what I don't have. Okay, I've got 2 cups of unsweetened applesauce, 8 eggs. Then I use 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract. I use pure vanilla. This is Meyer brand. Not fussy about the brand, but I don't want to use imitation vanilla. This is a half tablespoon measure. So I fill it once. Twice. Close the vanilla after you're done putting it in. Why do you want to do that? Well, it'll knock over the bottle. Vanilla is one of those things that stains everything it hits. Voice of experience again, guys. Butter flavor. 1 tablespoon of butter extract. There we go. These little bottles only hold 1 fluid ounce, so you get about 2 cakes out of a bottle. Then 1 tablespoon of lemon extract. There's 1. There's 2. I would like to read the instructions again. The recipe, just to make sure. Mix dry ingredients in bowl. Here we got dry ingredients. Mix wet ingredients in a separate bowl for the mixer. Here we go. I use an electric mixer. I suppose you could use anything you wanted. bowl that we need to have in there, last thing we need to do notice we didn't put any oil in the mix. That means it's going to be a very dry cake. It'll be moist, I mean it's got enough liquid in it, but it's going to stick to the pan unless you do this. Coat the inside of the pan liberally with cooking spray. I'm using Pam, the original, but that's just what I've got. It works, I'm happy with it. Put it over there, I know I've used it. You want to do it just before you put the mix into the bowl, into the pan. If you do it too soon, the Pam will slide down the sides of the pan and then the cake will stick to the walls. And when it does that, it comes out in little bitty chunks, which kind of destroys the whole point purpose of making this pretty cake in a bundt pan. Then you slide it into the oven. Set the timer for 20 minutes. And now we go relax. Just kidding about the relaxing. I've got all this mess to clean up. So for the next 20 minutes, I'm just going to make sure everything's all nice and clean when I'm done. Timer's going. Time to check the cake. I want a dry toothpick. Couple more minutes. Once the cake's cooled off, it's just simply a matter of setting the bowl or the plate on top of it to catch it, and then flipping the bundt pan over, and there we have finished cake. 8 days worth of cake.